Alright, Trample Slide plus the new creeper aspect is utterly ridiculous. So as you can see, my level here is 54. I mean, just look at that damage. I mean, there's definitely other strong builds that does this capstone really well too, like the Pulverized Druid, or maybe even Tornado, but I believe this build tops those by a good margin. But anyway, before we kill Elias, let me tell you how this build exactly works and came to be. So the build was already pretty good just with Poison Creeper and Subterranean aspect, which I used to level to around 40, 45 and completed level 50 capstone dungeons with. And I knew adding in Trample Slide to the mix would make the build better, but I definitely didn't think it would take it to a whole new level. So right after 50 capstones, I had a string of good luck where all the aspects I needed for Trample Slide dropped for me. The first drop, which was the most important aspect of the build, Trampled Earth. This makes Trample summon landslides and also makes it an Earth skill. But Trample has a long cooldown. This is when I had Symbiotic aspect drop. So if your key passive is Nature's Fury, where you have a chance to cast a free lightning skill whenever you cast an Earth skill and vice versa, Symbiotic aspect makes it so that whenever a free skill is activated by Nature's Fury, your non-ultimate cooldowns of the opposite type are reduced. Which means when, for example, you cast a Storm Strike and a free Earth skill is activated, your cooldown on Trample, which is an Earth skill now due to Trampled Earth, goes down by 3 to 5 seconds. And with this, we're able to spam Trample. And with those two aspects in place, you just top it off with a little bit of aspect of Aftershock, and we are absolutely cooking. We are already spamming landslides through Trample and Poison Creeper active, and this makes landslide activate twice. So double the damage right there. And we haven't even mentioned Pack Leader yet. Every time we critical strike, we have a chance to reset the cooldown of Poison Creeper. And we are critting a lot through Terror mode, so on top of the Trample spam, Poison Creeper's cooldown is also being reset. And we are able to spam Poison Creeper as well. So just through those skills and aspects, you are putting out so much damage. So those are the core things that really make this build. But let's go over the complementary aspects and defensive aspects as well I used for the dungeon. Okay, so I've covered Symbiotic aspect, I put that in my helmet. And then for the chest, I went with aspect of Disobedience. You gain increased armor whenever you do any type of damage. And for the gloves, I put aspect of Natural Balance. Actually, I didn't even have this aspect in the video, but I'm putting it here because it's really strong. After you cast a Storm skill, your Earth skills does extra critical strike damage for 4 seconds. So you want to try to weave in your Storm Strike between Tramples and Poison Creepers so that you get extra critical strike damage. For the pants, I went with Aspect of Might. Your basic skills grant 20% damage reduction, always a solid choice for defensive aspect. For the boots, I went with Ballistic aspect. Whenever you have Fortify, your Earth skills gain +2 in ranks, and we have a ton of Fortify all the time. For the weapon, I put aspect of Trampled Earth in, I've covered this. In the amulet, I put aspect of the Aftershock. For the first ring, Subterranean aspect. Poison Creepers active also cast landslides. And then for the last aspect, I went aspect of Retaliation. Core skills deal increased damage based on amount of Fortify you have. For the hearts, I went with Inexorable Force. And I'm gonna be honest, I didn't get Tempting Fate nor the Barber for this, but the most optimal ones would be these two. Instead, I had like the Kana and the defensive aspect and the defensive heart, Revenge in the video, but you should absolutely take the Barber and Tempting Fate if you have it. This would have made my build even way stronger. Inexorable Force was definitely easy to get at lower levels, so this shouldn't be a problem. And this is also really important to the build, since it really helps pull everything to you and you can just landslide those mobs down. And for the gems, for the weapon, I went with Emerald, critical strike damage to vulnerable enemies, and for armor, as usual, I went Sapphire, damage reduction while fortified. For the boons, I went with Wariness, reduced damage from elites and also from Elias, and then Side Talents, critical strike chance, Avian Wrath, critical strike damage, and then of course Pack Leader, which is a must. This will help reset Poison Creeper active whenever we do a critical strike. And then I took Calm Before the Storm to help reduce the cooldown of Petrify. And for the gear, you do need some pretty good affixes to put that amount of damage out. It certainly doesn't need to be perfect. In my run, I usually had maybe like the 3 top affixes that I list here in default builds, but the affixes definitely doesn't have to be perfect. I did have really good rings though. I think both my rings had really good affixes like critical strike chance, vulnerable damage, and critical strike damage. But if you can get 2 or 3 affixes from these, I think that's enough. And for the helmet, try to look for cooldown reduction. Amulet, you want to look for cooldown reduction. And as usual, chest armor and pants, you want all defenses. Like for example, for the chest in the video, I probably only had like damage reduction from close and maximum life. And another important part of the gear is the gloves, because it will give ranks to landslide, so you want to try to get that if you can, and maybe just try to hit like critical strike chance or critical strike damage, and I think you should be good to go. But yeah, I won't go over all the affixes. You can check it out in my default builds. I'll have the link in the description. Alright, now the skills. For our basic attack, we're going with Storm Strike. It gives us damage reduction, and since our key passive is Nature's Fury, and also for symbiotic aspect, we will need a storm skill for our basic attack. I guess you can also go with Wind Shear, but I prefer Storm Strike here. And then for our core skill, it's Landslide. This is what basically makes the build possible. It is like the heart of the build, so you want to max this out to 5. And the other passive, which is equally important, which is Primal Landslide, which gives us the ability to gain Terror Motes, which guarantees critical strikes and adds 40% critical strike damage. And you want to use all your skill points on the skill tree to make this more powerful. That is why we're taking Wild Impulses. Your core skills cost 9% more Spirit, but deals 15% increased damage. And to further increase its damage, we're taking Crushing Earth. Earth skills deal increased damage to immobilized and stunned enemies. Our Poison Creeper active immobilizes enemies, and our Petrify stuns enemies. So this is really easy to proc. And then we are taking Stone Guard. While you have Fortify for over 50% of your maximum life, your Earth skills deal increased damage, and it is really easy to keep Fortify up in this build due to Safeguard. Any critical strike with Earth skills fortify you for 7% of your base life. So normally against a pack of mobs, I have full Fortify up right after using 1 Trample and 1 Poison Creeper. And then we're taking Natural Disaster. Landslide will do extra damage to vulnerable enemies. And then Resonance. Earth skills will deal 18% increased damage right after you cast a storm skill, which will be Storm Strike for us. So those passive skills will really help boost the damage of Landslide. And then for our defensive skill, we're taking Earthen Bulwark, and we are taking Enhanced Earthen Bulwark for the Unstoppable. You definitely need this. And we are taking 3 points in Vigilance. We get extra 15% damage reduction for 6 seconds after using Earthen Bulwark. And just like Trample, Earthen Bulwark cooldown also gets reduced by Symbiotic Aspect. And then of course we're taking Poison Creeper, and its passive Brutal Poison Creeper. Your critical strike chance increased by 20% against enemies that are hit by the Poison Creeper active. And then our other big piece of the build, which is Trample. And for its passive, we're taking Savage Trample, which got even buffed after the last patch. So from 20 Spirit, we went to 40 Spirit, which in turn means more Landslide spams. And then for our ultimate skill, we're taking Petrify, since it works really well with Inexorable Force Malignant Heart, and we take both as 2 passives. And then for this build, we're also taking all 3 points in Quick Shift. Whenever a skill shapeshifts you into a different form, it deals increased damage. So usually we will be in human form when we use Poison Creeper, or when we're just auto-attacking with Storm Strike. And the moment we use Trample, we deal 15% increased damage because it shapeshifts us into a werebear. And then we are also taking 3 points in Heightened Senses for damage reduction against elites and bosses, again when we transform into a werebear. And finally, for our key passive, we're taking Nature's Fury. And for the Paragons, it's nothing crazy. At that time, I only had a few points, like 24 points. So you want to grab the damage node here and maximum life, and definitely grab the glyph, of course. For the glyph, I had Exploit equipped here. That's probably the best available glyph. But at the time, I only had Shapeshifter, so I had that Shapeshifter equipped. But if you have Exploit, equip Exploit. And then after the glyph, I just went for the extra damage here and willpower. And that's it for Paragons. I also wanted to show you guys the gameplay and like the skill rotation for the build. So this is gonna be assuming everything's off cooldown. So you wanna start with Petrify first. It will stun all the enemies, and you will also do extra critical strike damage to them. And with the help of the Malignant Heart, it's gonna pull everything in. And right after they're pulled in, I would use Poison Creeper active, which also makes the enemies take increased Earth skill damage with the help of Subterranean Aspect. And then try to cast at least 2 Landslides to use up some of your spirit, because right after we're gonna use Trample, and Trample is gonna restore 40 spirit. So right after the 2 Landslides, you use Trample. Sometimes we even get a Poison Creeper reset, so we use that again, and we just start using Storm Strike to lower the cooldown of Trample here. And then you just repeat the rotation. Oh, and also try to cast Earthen Bulwark right after you use Petrify when you pull everything in, like right next to you. Whenever Petrify wears off, they're gonna start attacking you. So you want to have Earthen Bulwark up. But yeah, that's basically the rotation to try to maximize damage output. Yeah, final thoughts on the build. I do think it is probably the strongest build. I'm not gonna say for all tiers because I don't know for tier 4 yet. but definitely for tier 3. Although the build does require you to get lucky and get 3 of the important aspects for this build to drop for you. Well, I guess not 3 is required, 2 is required, which is Trampled Earth and Symbiotic Aspect. Those 2 will make the build work, but Aspect of the Aftershock will definitely double the damage of the build, since Landslides will be casting twice. But yeah, if you find those aspects, this is definitely the go-to build. If you just want to steamroll to the capstone dungeon. Oh, and it's not just the capstone dungeon, it is a pretty smooth transition into tier 4 as well. Like the current clip I'm showing of Hell Tides in tier 4. I still have my sacred gear on. I don't have ancestral gear equipped yet since I'm not level 60 yet. Since ancestral gear requires level 60 to equip, I am still doing really well in tier 4 with the same gear setup for capstones. But yeah guys, let me know what you think of the build. Hope you enjoy it. My next target will definitely be higher nightmare dungeons and try to min-max this build. And if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. I would really appreciate it. And also subscribe if you want to see more of this content in the future. I'm definitely going to be blasting out content in the next few weeks. And again, thank you guys so much for watching.